morning wake-up call. A magnitude 6.6 quake strikes Taiwan's southeast. A city surrounded. Russia is accused of stopping aid from getting into Ukraine's port city of Mariupol.
I'm Blackout here in Lublin, a major Polish city not far from the border with Ukraine. There's a small Taiwanese community here doing what they can to help those fleeing the war-torn country next door. For many of them, it's a cause that hits close to home.
Plus, is Taiwan really combat ready? The results of a new survey on mandatory military service. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. People across Taiwan were shaken awake early Wednesday by an earthquake and phone alerts warning them to seek nearby cover. The quake struck off the coast of Hualien, about 60 kilometers south of Hualien County Hall, causing panic and some damage. Louise Watt reports.
In the early hours of Wednesday, shaking starts and 3 cats race out of the room. Their owner quickly sets down his bowl of noodles. Lights swung and terrified residents raced out of their homes. Taiwan's biggest earthquake so far this year hit at 1:41 a.m. off the coast of Hualien County, at a depth of 30 kilometers and about 60 kilometers from the county hall. It was felt across Taiwan, with the intensity reaching 6 on a 7-point scale in Changbin Township in Taidong County. An 88-year-old resident there was rushed to the hospital after being hit in the head by falling debris. As the aftershocks kept coming, the hospital decided to treat patients outside.
规模6.6，接下来呢，它有马上在43分又有一个规模6.1的余震，然后接下来有好几个规模4点多的，4.7、4.9、4.5都有啊。那它的余震肯定是相当多的了。
The tremors messed up convenience stores, cracked floors of homes, and damaged a shrimp farm. More than 100,000 prawns were swept away when pipes burst.
刚才这个水全部都溢出来嘛，现在池子全部都干了，虾都漏完了。
A 10-ton boulder measuring almost 2 meters in height crashed onto Taiwan's coastal freeway. Rockfall debris covered other parts of the road as well, leading to the closure of southbound lanes. In southern Hualien, a streetlight snapped in half, and the floor of a bridge under renovation collapsed. The roof of a rice factory also partially collapsed. Fortunately, no one was trapped inside. As people continue the clear-up, Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau says there could be aftershocks of more than 5.5 in the next 3 days. Klein Wong and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
As Russia's invasion of Ukraine enters its 28th day, Moscow's military strikes on the southeastern port city of Mariupol are intensifying. Hundreds of thousands of people remain trapped, and Ukraine is accusing Russia of blocking humanitarian aid. Bing Wang reports.
39-year-old Victoria Totson arrived in Poland from Mariupol 2 days ago with her 2 daughters. They were living near a theater used as a shelter. It held as many as 1,300 civilians before it was attacked by Russian shelling.
В Маріуполі майже 90% міста знищено. 90% міста знищено. Всі 20 днів нас бомбили. Ми, поки там були, 5 днів літак через кожні 5 секунд прилітав і скидував бомби на все, що можна. На всі будинки, дитячі садочки, школи мистецтв, на все.
Mariupol, Ukraine's southeastern port city, has been under constant Russian assault since the start of the war. Mariupol's local council has called the city ashes of a dead land. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 100,000 people are still believed to be trapped inside buildings without access to food, electricity, or water. Attempts to bring civilians to safety have been mostly unsuccessful.
Під постійним бомбардуванням вже не перший тиждень ми намагаємося організувати стабільні гуманітарні коридори для маріупольців. І майже всі наші спроби, на жаль, зриваються російськими окупантами, обстрілами або свідомим терором.
The capture of Mariupol would be a strategic win for Russia as it would link the city with the two areas controlled by pro-Russian separatists. In an interview with CNN, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia would not rule out the use of nuclear weapons if the country's existence was threatened. Fearing further escalation, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is hoping to bring the two sides to a ceasefire.
Continuing the war in Ukraine is morally unacceptable, politically indefensible, and militarily nonsensical. It is time to stop the fighting now and give peace a chance. It is time to end this absurd war.
As negotiations by representatives from both countries have brought no solutions, Ukraine's leader is repeating calls to directly meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin and hopefully bring an end to the suffering of millions of people. Chris Ma and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus's reporter Rick Glowett is in Lublin, an eastern Polish city that has become a hub for those fleeing conflict in Ukraine. He reports on a small Taiwanese community helping those in need.
These aid workers in the Polish city of Lublin are praying before they break for lunch. Standing with them is Joey Chen, a medical student from Taiwan. Living in Lublin, he volunteers for Tsai-Abe, one of Taiwan's largest Buddhist charities. Like many people here, the group has been working tirelessly to help deliver aid to those affected by war in Ukraine.
If something happened in me, I might need help. So if now I have this ability, so I also can help them. Then if we have this same situation, someone might help us also.
Lublin has become a major hub for the huge humanitarian response to the conflict. Here at the main bus station, Ukrainian refugees are arriving non-stop from the border just over 100 kilometers away. Polish authorities, charities and NGOs are straining under the weight of providing assistance to so many people. They say international support is essential. Here, Taiwanese students, some of the several hundred who live in the city, deliver supplies. For them, it's a cause that hits close to home. Taiwan also faces the constant threat of invasion from a bellicose neighbor, China.
也不能说没有可能，对，就是也是有可能，我们也变成那样子。那就是在我们可以帮助别人的时候，尽量多帮助他们。
Across town, the Polish Red Cross has hired more staff, enlisted volunteers, and transferred car parks and office spaces to deal with all the humanitarian aid.
W momencie wybuchu wojny na Ukrainie nasza praca jako etatowych pracowników Polskiego Czerwonego Krzyża mocno się zmieniła. To, że doba się wydłużyła i zaczęliśmy pracować i w dzień, i w nocy, to nie było takiego wielkiego znaczenia jak to, że musieliśmy całkowicie przegrupować swoje szeregi, jeśli chodzi o struktury.
But after their basic needs are met, food, shelter, medicine, refugees may have to start building a life in this area as the war in their homeland rumbles on. That's where Taiwanese business person Jimmy Lin wants to help. He's opened these student dormitories to give low-cost accommodation to Ukrainian refugees. And he has plans to transform these teaching rooms into a school for Ukrainian children.
All the Ukrainian people, they have their daily life. Everybody, the kids go to school, the parents work, and suddenly, why they need to suffer from this?
As the war enters its second month, it is uncertain when daily life for Ukrainians will return to normal. But in this Polish border city, people from around the world are coming together to help deliver some comfort. Rick Glowett in Lublin, Poland for TaiwanPlus.
Rick Glowett spoke to Xu Yishen, the director of the Taiwan Trade Center in Kyiv, who is now in Warsaw, Poland, after leaving Ukraine. He began by asking Xu about the evacuation efforts for Taiwanese citizens after the outbreak of the war.
Yeah, the war began on February 24th. So that day I arranged a bus for some of them. and the bus took off from Kiev. I waited for them in Lviv. I paid the rental fee for them in Lviv and let them off to Poland. And then I drove to southwards, I think, on February 26th with some other Taiwanese, because we found that they were also starting bombing in the western regions, such as like in Lutsk, in Ivano-Frankivsk, in those military infrastructures or airports. So it was like from Lviv to Uzhhorod, the Carpathian mountainous regions. Usually you take like 4 or 5 hours, but we drove 15 hours. Then when we arrived in Uzhhorod, there was a long line. So we waited actually for 40 hours in line. So it took us like some 50 hours to get out of Ukraine to arrive in Slovakia. So me myself, during wartime, I stayed inside Ukraine for 5 more days, I think. But luckily, I moved west quite early. So and later I moved the southwest region. So I didn't meet any kind of instant danger myself.
And after the invasion began, how was the mood in Ukraine? What did your friends and people you knew in the country say to you?
Yeah, I think the saddest part is that like all the friends you know, like all the people you know, like they're under threat, and they were like air alarming like every day. Like I myself, I've experienced that. That's really something. It's really like torturing you, like physically and mentally. And I found myself, regardless of their occupations, like they were journalists, like writers, professors, or athletes, like they all changed to military suits. They either like took up guns or try to help to distribute those medical stuffs. So what I found, it's of course it's not easy to look at like your friends, like they have to change in this way, like voluntarily or like forced to do that. But what I also found moving is that most of them, how they've shown their patriotism, like from people I know, few of them, especially men, few of them tried or wanted to escape from their homeland. Like they all stayed there and stayed together to fight the Russians.
Russia's most prominent opposition figure, Alexei Navalny, has been convicted of fraud and contempt of court in a trial he says is politically motivated. The conviction carries a sentence of 9 years in a maximum security prison. It replaces a sentence Navalny was already serving for violating conditions of parole handed down after an earlier conviction of embezzlement. Navalny has been in prison since he returned to Russia early last year. He had received medical care in Germany after a poisoning attempt on his life. The opposition leader has been a persistent thorn in the side of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Most recently, he's called for mass protests against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The invasion of Ukraine has fired Chinese censors and state media into action, promoting Russian propaganda and eliminating voices that challenge it. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick has a look at one of the voices being censored and investigates what Beijing's reaction tells us about its global outlook.
晚上快8点了，又开始有交火。
These are images of the war in Ukraine that few in China will see. Captured by Beijing-born vlogger Wang Zixian in Odessa, these viral videos offering shaky smartphone footage and personal reflections have been banned in the homeland of the software engineer turned citizen journalist. And it's not hard to see why.
刚刚8点钟的时候，就在这儿，就在我窗户这儿，我听见一声巨大的爆炸。昨天晚上一声巨大的爆炸，这是敖德萨。昨天晚上，那个超市是建在居民生活区的。 超市被炸，居民生活区的发电站被炸， 谁打的那个房主该死？能不能有一个人呼吁一下，问问那个房子里面有没有人住？他还好吗？他活下来了没有？房子里住的那个人，他家房子没了，他现在住哪儿呢？他未来日子怎么过？他房子谁赔？
Wang's videos run in the face of China's state media, which have refused to even mention the words war or invasion. Despite its official neutrality, China's tightly controlled press and social media have followed Moscow's lead, blaming the West for the conflict.
The first thing you notice is the kind of Chinese addiction to Russian disinformation and Russian framing, which has continued. China has also shared a lot of Russian disinformation. It's really opened its arms, and we saw this especially in the first 2 weeks. A lot of RT coverage, Sputnik coverage shared across Chinese social media, but also official media.
Chinese censors have been quick to ban people like Wang who challenge that view. But for this long-time observer of Chinese media, the most notable hasn't been how Beijing has been talking about Ukraine, but how it hasn't been talking about Ukraine at all, instead centering the biggest story in the world around itself and its ongoing grudge against the West.
For official China, really much of the Ukraine story is really about China and the West. So it's almost become a proxy war between China and the US over framing and over dominance and over who has the role as a responsible power. And against all of this is China's obsessive focus with itself right now. China has really not prioritized Ukraine because it has the 20th National Congress, the CCP coming up in the fall. This is where the whole focus really is, and the sensitivity is with China right now. For me, I see this this approach in the official media, and China looks really, it really doesn't look like an engaged international global power in many ways at all, because it's a lot of its positions, I think, are hard to defend. What it calls engagement that's constructive very much looks like kind of fence sitting.
This lack of a clear counter-narrative may come as a disappointment for those looking to Beijing for an alternative in global leadership. But in besieged Odessa, fence-sitting is not an option for Wang.
你敢不敢为你自己的信仰付出生命？来这儿，亲眼看。到今天，我告诉你，还没走的人没一个害怕你的。你来就完了。这儿我们的人爱和平，我不会用枪，我不会杀掉你，你有可能打死我啊！但是你记住，你永远打不服我。这场战争我看不到你任何赢的希望。你可以把这儿的人都杀光了，但你别想把这儿的任何一个人打服了。听得懂吗？
As China's rulers eye their own periphery for territories to bring under their control, it's messages like Wang's that need to be heard there, and yet are not. Ryan Hill-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
Now, many Taiwanese think the country's military service is too short. That's according to a new survey carried out by the Taiwanese Public Opinion Foundation. Jaime Ocon has the details.
These reservists are finishing what Taiwan is calling the toughest training in the country's history, all part of Taiwan's effort to bolster its combat readiness. But a new survey is revealing that many Taiwanese think that their military training needs improvement, particularly its mandatory service. At present, all nationals aged between 18 to 36 must serve in the military for 4 months. The survey, taken by the Taiwanese Public Opinion Foundation, said that 75% feel mandatory service should be lengthened to 1 year to help shore up the country's defenses against Chinese aggression. China, which sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, regularly breaches Taiwan's air defense zone and has not renounced the use of force to take the island.
会比较偏重是1年吧，因为4个月的话，就是很多都学不到。
But as patriotic as most Taiwanese are, there are those who wouldn't want their call to duty extended.
是为了那个国家的话，是1年是还好，但是个人的话，会比较想要当4个月。
Taiwan's military is also considering moving its best troops, the Sea Dragons, to Tamsui, an important port district in the capital.
海龙蛙兵由于它也具备这个2栖的这个征收能力，也具有这个海上的这样一个快艇相关的这些反突击的这些装备跟人员。如果把它移师到淡水的话，我相信可能会让军方现在面对淡水河防的这样一个困境会获得缓解。
As Taiwan watches developments in the war in Ukraine unfold, it hopes that it can take lessons to strengthen its own defenses and prevent a similar attack from its authoritarian neighbor. Damon Lin and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Taiwan's bid to join a major regional trade pact featured in discussions held by President Tsai Ing-wen and former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Taiwan lodged its bid to join the Tokyo-led Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership in September. The 30-minute virtual talk also addressed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Tsai said that no such unilateral change to the international status quo should be allowed in the Indo-Pacific region. The meeting was organized by a Japanese parliamentary group that promotes ties with Taiwan's legislature. Abe stepped down as Prime Minister in 2020, but remains influential within Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party. Taiwan reported 97 COVID-19 cases on Wednesday, with 2 identified as local infections. 2 delegates from Belize to the Smart City Summit Expo are among the imported patients. Taiwan's health minister has recalled all delegations in Taiwan under the Expo's travel bubble for further checks. Other epidemic prevention regulations are also being amended. Following a cluster infection with 6 patients traced to a wedding banquet in Chiayi City, the Central Epidemic Command Center has banned wedding parties toasting at individual tables. Despite these new infections, the pandemic is largely under control in Taiwan, so the government is retiring its 1922 vaccination booking website system at the end of the month. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has issued a warning on enoki mushrooms imported from central Taiwan after finding listeria, a bacteria that can cause fatal illness. The Jianghua cooperative where the mushrooms originated has stopped selling the mushrooms while samples undergo testing. They claimed the mushrooms did not arrive in California until they expired and mostly likely became contaminated en route. Taiwan's FDA said the mushrooms found to contain listeria were all exported and none are being sold locally. 3 employees of Taiwan Power Company, known as Taipower, have been questioned over a blackout that left 5 million households in the dark earlier this month. It's believed that human error was responsible for the outage. Authorities are also investigating allegations that the power outage led to the death of an 80-year-old man in the southern city of Kaohsiung. Phil Wang reports.
The bed left behind by the 80-year-old grandfather. Wu died on March 3rd, soon after a nationwide power outage. A city councilor read out a letter from the family who believed the power cut shortened his life.
我是吴爷爷的家人，希望不要再有同样的憾事再次发生。
The family said the 80-years-old Wu was on a respirator and his oxygen generator lost power due to the blackout. Wu passed away just an hour into the power outage, which in some parts of the city lasted for nearly half a day. The family reported the incident to the Taiwan Power Company multiple times, but received no response. Kaohsiung Mayor Chen Chi-mai has raised the issue directly with Taipower.
案件到底是怎么样？死亡的原因到底是什么？中间的因果关系到底是什么？来做一些判断。
3 Taipower employees have already been found responsible for the blackout, and legal proceedings are underway. Patrick Chen and Phil Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Sri Lanka has deployed its military to gas stations across the country amid a worsening economic crisis. Officials say they decided to send troops after 3 elderly people, quote, dropped dead while queuing for fuel in sweltering heat. Sri Lanka has been mired in economic crisis since 2019. Its foreign exchange reserves have fallen by 70% since then, making it harder for the country to pay for critical imports. Sri Lanka's president last week requested a bailout from the International Monetary Fund to solve the crisis. A search and rescue operation is underway after a Mongolian cargo ship sank off the coast of Taichung in central Taiwan. A Taiwanese crew member is still missing. All 7 others on board, who were Indonesian nationals, were lifted to safety by helicopters. They are all in stable condition. The ship sent out an emergency call on Tuesday afternoon. It was 48 nautical miles from Taiwan's coast.
目前送到医院有7名患者，那目前大致7名的生命征象都稳定。那初步评估就是有1名是有头部的明显的外伤，然后一个是肩膀疑似有脱臼的情形，然后有1名患者膝盖可能也有一些伤势和胸部的挫伤，那其余其实都有一些轻微的失温。那目前生命征象都还算稳定，有待我们做下一步的检查和评估。
Animal protection groups have accused a safari park in northern Taiwan of mismanagement that has led to the premature deaths of 8 giraffes over the past decade. The campaigners on Tuesday urged the government not to allow Liufu village in Hsinchu County to import 3 more giraffes from Mexico. They say several giraffes have died at the park in the last 10 years, most of them under the age of 10, far below a giraffe's average lifespan of 27 years. Causes of death include infection, falling in poorly designed pens, and ingesting a plastic bag. The park currently only has 1 remaining giraffe. Liufu village has not yet responded to the group's allegations. Authorities say they will carry out an on-site inspection of the park in the next few months. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.